okay to take
you're
photos?
okay. Yes. Oh, yes, fine.
I'm sending some photos to my pastor.
Oh, that's
He's
nice.
like, oh, he's going to be so
I
happy,
can see
especially when I saw the flag as well.
Yes, I was going to say, I can see where you come from. Yeah. Do you need any help, or are you happy just to look round yourself?
Well, if you want to share
I can share. Yes, okay.
He's Swedish and Brazilian.
I don't. I saw the flag.
No, but he's Swedish.
Oh, you're Swedish.
I'm Swedish.
Yeah, but he's.
I'm Brazilian.
Oh, yeah, but he's got your flag on his back.
Yeah, Jesse arrived from Brazil for We've been there for 60 months.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Cold here. I
It
forgot
is cold, and we've got this is John Wesley's chapel, as you can see. Now, if John Wesley was to walk in here now, he'd say, "What have you done to my chapel?"
It's different.
It's very different, yes. The size and everything is the same, but the bits at the front and the bits at the side have all been sort of added on. What you're looking at is the Victorians. They got their hands on it. And 100 years after John Wesley died, they decided to refurbish the place so that to celebrate his life.
Yes.
So in John Wesley's time, if he was to walk in here, he'd be walking on a wooden floor. He wouldn't be looking at the pews. He would be just looking at benches. Okay, the ladies had a back on their bench, the gentlemen didn't, and they sat separately. Very clever. I've never seen that before. Ever.
That's very
I need that at home sometimes.
That was probably for the maidservants to have to sit on, maybe. Our first woman Prime Minister, and she was married in this church. She came from a Methodist family, and her children were baptised here as well. And in fact, I've just had a visitor who thought she actually came to worship here. I've not heard that before, but she might have. She was from Lincoln, from Grantham. Yes, yeah. Her father was a lay preacher. And I read somewhere that she was a lay preacher before she went into politics, but I've only read that. I don't know that for certain. The original communion rail is behind there. Now, I'll just quickly show you the fonts because I've got a story to tell you about the font. So this is quite, as I say, this is 80, so it's quite modern. But even the glass table it looks right there, doesn't it? You know, it's supposed to emulate the manger, the crib. And you can see that. Well, as you can see, that this is a very traditional looking font, isn't it? Totally out of place in here. And this actually came from the parish church of his friend John Fletcher. Now, John Fletcher was being groomed to take over. Because he was a lot younger than John Wesley, being groomed to take over as leader. He died before John, much to John's annoyance. But anyway, the church he was at sent, I believe it was just the top bit, and they had to commission somebody to do the plinth. But, so you're looking at a very, very old font that comes from a traditional church. But this is the powerful thing here. This is just an ordinary rough stone. And if you look at the symbols, it's chains breaking. So I think you can guess what the symbolism is. Now, this stone comes from Antigua, and it comes from a sugar plantation. It was owned by a man called Nathaniel Gilbert, who became a Methodist. He freed his slaves. A lot of his slaves became Methodists. And when he died, the plantation became the Museum for Slavery, and they sent this stone to this church. John Wesley never saw it, he was long gone. But because John Wesley supported the anti-slave movement. And just days before he died, he wrote to the MP William Wilberforce, who was very big on it, to say, keep up the good work. We've actually got that letter in the museum. So it's worth saying. But it really is quite powerful, isn't it? And I believe that this was one of the stones that a slave would have had to stand on to be inspected before they were deemed fit to work in the sugar fields. And this is a big congregation. You can see by the flags it's a very, very eclectic congregation, because these flags represent the membership of this church, and there's quite a lot of African flags, and a lot of African children are baptised here. You can tell by the names on the cradle rolls as well. As I always point out, because the rest are just memorial windows, well, they're all memorial windows, that these two tell the story of Methodism. That one there is the conversion window, the one on the right, which is commemorating John Wesley's Holy Spirit entering him, which was down at Aldersgate, just down the road from here. And the next one is The Whole World is My Parish, because although he had this church, which originally was a meeting room here, he would only be here during the winter. During the summer, he was out across the country preaching to all, different Methodist societies. We've got things we want to preserve. And it's the only place we don't allow photography. You find everywhere else, but not downstairs. All right? The stairs are quite steep, so be careful. Oh, sorry.
Oh, the whole meal.
This torch is there if you want to have one. Okay, there is something there. On the back.
What's here?
Okay, well, so welcome to the housekeeper's domain. This is the kitchen, and as you can see, it's underground. Everything had to be brought down from street level. Is that?
That's yours. That's not mine.
I was going to say, that's a good one. Things to do with John Wesley, hence they were called the relics. And they're all to do with his travelling ministry, so if you want to come in and have a little look.
No, thank you very much.
So as you can see, he wasn't very tall. His shoes were size 4, so I'm size 3, so not much bigger than mine. And they were also, he was very careful with his money because they were straight. So when they wore out one side, you just swap them over and they lasted longer. Buckles were taken from one pair of shoes to another, so he knew how to save money. Travelling case, again he would have travelled light. There's just his sleeping things, a little knife and fork in there. He didn't take, they probably would have been just full of books. Travelling communion cup, and you'll find on the other side his travelling writing case. Now, he spent the winter here. In the summer, he would have been on his horseback travelling the length and breadth of the country. Now, so during the winter, when he was here, he had to keep those muscles toned up for his summer rides. And so he used to do some exercise on one of these. And you'll find it when we go upstairs, you'll see a real one. This is just a mock-up. It's called a chamber horse. And he used to spend half an hour a day sitting on here and going up and down to keep his muscles, the muscle tone going. Okay?
I think I need to.
It's his chamber horse. He would never have travelled alone. He would have always travelled with somebody. They were dangerous times on the road. You've got some highwaymen, things like that. We do know he was never robbed by a highwayman. Probably was a reason that he didn't have anything to rob, probably. But he would have travelled with other people. And hence the fact that we've got that over, that was somebody who went with him, and we used to take that along for people to sing along to. Now this picture is the very last place that John Wesley preached, under that tree. When he died, that tree was just stripped. It was stripped of branches, twigs, leaves, the lot. And you will find in the museum there's actual branches in there. Here we've got a leaf because everybody wanted something to do with John Wesley after he died. And Wesleyanelia became a big thing. And in fact you see some very dodgy pottery all around the place, you know, and that's part of the Wesleyanelia. In there you'll find his examples of his hair and mourning jewellery. Very, very, you know, that's what people did in Georgian times. They would wear the hair of whoever was close to them in jewellery, and you wore it. Again, it's supposed to be his hair. You know, you just take it as read that it was. We also have the famous teapot that Josiah Wedgwood made him. Holds a gallon of tea. Well, of course, John Wesley didn't drink tea. Wasn't good for the body or the soul. We do know that as a student, he had too much tea once and had hallucinations. However, in Georgian times, tea was extremely expensive, so why would John Wesley be drinking something expensive that other people wouldn't drink? There was no way he would have done. So herbal teas were his tipple.
It's the dining room.
The dining room, yes. This is where all entertaining would have been done. People would have been happy to join in a meal with him. Pretty much vegetarian, again meat was expensive, and you wouldn't have wanted to come on one of his fasts. So if you could come in please, because he used to fast 2 days a week, so quite, if you came on one of those days, whether you got food I don't know. There you see an example of the chamber horse, a real one. Now it appears he was such a lover of this form of exercise that he wrote to his brother, Charles Wesley, who was on his deathbed, and said, you need to buy one of those, get out of your bed and get on, it will cure you. So he knew the benefits of keeping healthy. Hence the vegetarian diet as well. He was very much a man of the 21st century. The 5-2 diet, the exercise, and you will find out all about the sort of herbal remedies that he used, the alternative for Sorry? Sorry, I can't touch that one, but basically this is spring-loaded, and he sat on it, holding the arms, and his legs went on there, and he just used the springs as a sort of resistance. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to pop down and feel the one because that's a thing, downstairs. Okay. If you just turn round, I'm just going to tell you about this picture, because this is quite important to let you see this picture. It's a live tree for the local governor. Charles soon got fed up of that and came back to England. John stayed a bit longer, but probably John shouldn't have stayed a bit longer, because he did cause a few problems. He was the curate for the European community there. He promised to marry one of the young members of the congregation, but didn't get round to it. So she got fed up of waiting and married somebody else. John then threw a bit of a hissy fit and refused to give her communion. And so basically he was told he'd better leave America very quickly for his own safety, to which he did. But I'm just going to rewind this story, because on their way to America, they went on a sailing ship. They met a group of persecuted Christians from Europe called Moravians, and they went through a very bad storm. And the Moravians just took it calmly. They just read the Bible, they prayed, they sang hymns, whereas John and Charles thought that was it, they were doomed. And they got through the storm. And John and Charles were really impressed with the sort of religious fervour of these Christians. So when they got home, they kept in touch with the Moravian community that was over here in Aldersgate, which is just down the road. Now, but they continued going to meetings with them, and it was at one of the meetings that they went to that both of them had their religious conversion.
Strangely warm.
Their heart, the Holy Spirit entered them, and their heart became strangely warmed. Because prior to that, neither of them felt. They felt they were just going through the motions. It was what they were brought up to do, and that was it. It was what was expected of them. whereas they didn't feel it was coming from their heart. But after that experience, it did. So, had they not gone to that meeting and felt that, we might not have been standing here now. So it's worth thinking about that. Right, I'm not going to go into the next room with you. You can just pop in there because there's an awful lot to see. That's just another sort of parlour. This house would have always been somebody living here. It wasn't John Wesley's house. It belonged to the church. Now, he did have his personal space here, but whether or not in the summer when he wasn't here other people lived in it, I don't know. But these were his study and his bedroom, and this is where he died. We don't know if he died in here or whether in his bedroom. Now, in here we do have things that were here during John Wesley's time, like the clock. Is a family piece, and it still keeps time. It did chime a few years ago, but there was building work done next door, and I think the vibration stopped it chiming, unfortunately. His study chair, which is quite intriguing, isn't it? You sat facing that way, your legs went there, and you rested whatever on this ledge. Sometimes called a cockfighter's chair, because they were the sort of chairs that were used at cockfights. Also, we also know that there was a man in the area who used to be a cockfighter, and he became a Methodist, gave up the wicked ways, and we think he probably gave this chair to John Wesley. Okay? John Wesley's desk. It's a bit different, it's a bit more ornate than Charles Wesley's, isn't it? Now this one actually has got secret compartments in it. Now, John Wesley would always have money in here to give to people, and that's where he used to keep it. However, he did hide some letters in there from some ladies that had written to him. He used to have a bit of a fan club, especially amongst the ladies, and he hid them from his wife. His wife found them. She wasn't very happy that he'd hidden them, and of course he wasn't very happy that that she'd been in his private things. That was probably the final nail in the coffin that was their marriage. They were married a good few years, but they eventually went their separate ways and went away from being married. He probably should never have got married. He did have trials and tribulations over the years as to whether he should or not. And the lady he married nursed him through an illness, and probably he thought, oh, I'm getting a bit old, maybe I'd better get married to have somebody look after me in my old age. But it didn't work. You see in the corner this peculiar looking thing. It's his electric shock treatment machine. And that's during Georgian times, scientists had found out about electricity. I don't know how you suddenly find electricity, but they did, and didn't know what to do with it. They weren't using it for anything in particular, and they thought, oh, well, maybe it might cure illnesses. Now, as previously said, John Wesley had a real interest in helping people who couldn't afford a doctor or an apothecary. And so he wrote a book called The Primitive Physic, and in it he listed every single ailment you could possibly have, and it's what we'd call alternative remedies now. It's herbal remedies. For instance, if you got the plague, you would take marigolds for that, and good luck to you, that's all I can say. However, every so often in that book, he would write, try electric shock, and it was used for curing headaches, rheumatic pains, and depression. And of course, electric shock treatment is used for depression still today. He also tried it on himself. So, you know, that tells us a little bit more about the man, I think. Yes, behind you is part of his library. It's not all of it. Lots of those books have got his little scrawlings in, because he used to use those books to write simple papers so that everybody could have access to them. People couldn't afford to buy those books, and you know, sleep tight was rope on the bottom, and then you had to tighten it up every so often because they used to sag. And of course the mattresses were horsehair and straw, and so full of bed bugs. So hence the fact that is. Look for his ensuite accommodation in there. And beyond that room is his little prayer room. He used to get up very early every morning, spend half an hour at prayer before the 5 o'clock service next door, because services at the church were always at a different time to the parish church in the area. So do feel free to go and have a look.